Good evening and welcome to the last appointment of the year before the Christmas holidays in our international cycle of video conferences. Tonight we'll have a presentation from the USA from by Jack May, and we will talk about recent developments in rail transit in California. But before giving the floor to Jack, I remind you that you can use the chat in every moment. And at the end of the presentation, there will be a space for any questions, both in English or in Italian. I remind you also that our next international video conference next year is scheduled for Tuesday, January 23rd, 2024, and will deal about tramways in Alexandria, Egypt. Before giving the word to Jack, I repeat all in Italian. Buonasera, benvenuti a tutti all'ultimo appuntamento di quest'anno in questo nostro ciclo di videoconferenze internazionali dedicate ai tram e agli altri mezzi di trasporto. Questa sera abbiamo una presentazione dagli Stati Uniti d'America tenuta da Jack May, che ci parlerà di sviluppi recenti nei servizi su rotaia, tram e LRT in California. Prima di dare la parola a Jack, vi ricordo che potete usare la chat in ogni momento e alla fine della presentazione ci sarà uno spazio per domande in inglese o in italiano. Vi ricordo anche che la prossima conferenza internazionale sarà nell'anno nuovo, quindi martedì 23 gennaio, sempre alle ore 21, e parlerà dei tram in Alessandria d'Egitto. Grazie, la parola va ora a Jack May. Jack, if you want, you can start, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me again. Tonight's subject will be a current look at the tramway light railway scene in parts of California, with an emphasis on developments in the last 5 years. This will be more of a cursory look than an inspection of all the traction properties in California, as that would take hours. And besides, I am far from being an expert, living as I do on the East Coast of the United States. Both my wife and I have family in the San Francisco Bay Area, though, and we had reason to visit them during this past year and in both 2019 and 2022 as well. For me, those sojourns also are opportunities to catch up on developments on various transportation properties in the state, mainly in the San Francisco and Los Angeles areas. And can you see my cursor is circling San Francisco right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's working. I'm glad to see that. But there is definitely not sufficient time to look at all the properties in historic detail. So this presentation will partially be a travelogue following my movements, with more comprehensive descriptions confined to new developments. If you're flying into the San Francisco area, you will most likely land at San Francisco International Airport. But it is also possible to use Oakland International Airport on the east side of San Francisco Bay. Both are connected by automated people movers to BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit, the electric regional rapid transit system, or regional metro. Here is Oakland International Airport, and down here is San Francisco Airport. We will look at this map several times in this portion of my presentation. BART's current mainline electric route length is 115 miles, or 188 kilometers. An initial segment opened in 1972, and 2 years later it reached its full potential when it was extended across San Francisco Bay. And since then, there have been other extensions. The automated Oakland Airport People Mover, which opened in 2014, is operated by BART. The elevated guideway is 3.2 miles, or 8 kilometers long. 4 cable-propelled trains of 3 cars each were built by Doppelmayr. Almost all of my trips started at San Francisco Airport. Called AirTrain, SFO's 3-mile-long automated system is operated by the airport and is free over its 2 routes and 11 stops, one of which is at the BART station. It is considered an intra-airport facility connecting various terminals, garages, and its rental car facilities. It was opened in 2003 and uses 38 Bombardier, now Alstom, Innovia rail cars. I should mention that there were multitudinous wildfires in Northern California on this September trip, with the smoke reaching as far down as the San Francisco area. My eyes did not notice it, but my camera did. Thus, I'm going to show more photos from 2022 than 2023, because in many cases, the latter turned out to be very hazy, like the previous one that you saw, this one, as opposed to this. My wife and I stayed with her sister in Martinez, California, a distant suburb of San Francisco, on each of our most recent trips. Thus, we used BART to travel to the North Concord Martinez station from the airport. And that's way up here at the top of the map. The ride was about 1 hour on the yellow line, which was formerly called the Pittsburgh-Antioch line. You'll see that those 3 stations in the upper right. These 2 photos were taken at West Oakland Station, the first after the 3.6 mile or 5.7 kilometer tunnel under the bay from San Francisco. The original cars for the opening of BART in 1972 were made up of Type A cab cars and Type B intermediate ones. The A cars are the iconic symbol of BART, with their sculptured slope fiberglass cabs introduced well before copycats. Rohr Industries, an aerospace manufacturer, built 450 of them up to 1975. They were successful, unlike the trams built by another aerospace company, Boeing Vertol, for Boston and San Francisco. Some of those trams can only be ridden now at tramway museums. See in this West Oakland photo, the C cars, which were not as reliable as the A's and B's, have already been scrapped, despite the newest being only 25 years old. Some trains of A's and B's are being kept in reserve in case of a major switch from automobile commuting back to BART and changing from working at home to commuting, as well as for special occurrences like concerts and major sporting events where there may be high patronage. Contrast the 2 types of trains in these photos. BART's entire electric revenue fleet is now made up of 310 Type D cab cars and 465 inside E cars built by Bombardier Alstom. The first of the so-called fleet of the future went into service in 2018, and the cars are still being delivered, although there are enough now for current schedules. One of the main reasons I photographed BART in 2019 was because the D cars were new and there wasn't as many operating then. Now they are the only electric BART cars running. This view of a train of D's is also at West Oakland.
Getting that, but we're not getting
as
that.
is this one.
Yeah.
Note,
We're on 3 phases, so maybe it's
Yeah.
note the difference in clarity between this photo from 2022 compared to this one in 2023, especially in terms of the Oakland skyline. But that was the fires. Note that I said electric. In 2018, BART placed into service a 9.1 mile, 6.4 kilometer non-electrified extension from the end of the yellow line at Pittsburgh to Antioch. And that's in the upper right-hand side of this map. Note the spelling of Pittsburgh. There's no H at the end, like the famous city in Pennsylvania. This line, called E-BART, uses 8 Stadler-built GTW cars powered by diesel fuel. They operate from the same platform in Pittsburgh as terminating a yellow line trains to a terminal at Antioch via double track in the median of a freeway with one intermediate stop. I took these photos in 2019. This location is the Pittsburgh transfer platform, a little over a half-mile from the Pittsburgh Bay Point station, to which the yellow line was extended in 1996. Here, passengers walk across the platform to transfer between the mainline electric train and diesel E-BART ones. There is no access to this platform from the outside world. So passengers from Antioch to Pittsburgh Bay Point must ride mainline trains for a very short distance to be able to get to the street. There is talk of extending E-BART further beyond Antioch in the future. The newest mainline extension of BART occurred on the orange and green lines, which was extended for 15.5 miles. See the lower right part of the map, from Fremont to Berryessa in the city of San Jose, the last portion opening in 2020, which is why I wrote it on my latest strips. Bus connections can be made from the current terminal to downtown San Jose, but BART will eventually be extended to the city center, possibly by 2036. That's a long way off. MacArthur Station in Oakland with a train of D cars, where I transferred from a yellow line train to an orange line one. Berryessa, the current terminal, is located in North San Jose. This view of a train of C cars is from my 2022 visit. The next to the last station, Milpitas, is underground, but it's adjacent to the San Jose light rail system, which is elevated at that point, so an easy transfer can be made to LRVs to connect to the area's tramway system. There's nothing too much new in San Jose, so I will skip reporting on that city and its 3-line light rail system now, and if we have sufficient time at the end, we can bring it back. Now let me switch over to part 2 of the program. And I'm missing the ability to make the screen big again. Okay, there we go. The next portion of the program deals with my visit to the city of San Francisco and recent developments on the Municipal Railway, or MUNI, which provides urban transit in the city by the bay, using trams, buses, trolley buses, and even cable cars. The contrast between the city's sophisticated skyscrapers and some of its quaint transit vehicles never fails to intrigue me. This is a California Street cable car climbing from the city's financial district toward Nob Hill. The hilly topography of the city has defined its transit from its onset in the late 19th century. Its steep grades resulted in the use of cable cars and also the construction of tunnels for its tramways. But it is the tram system that always gets most of my attention whenever I visit. About 800,000 people live in the city, but it's a magnet for commuters from nearby counties and tourists from all over the world. It has 6 light rail lines that run under the downtown area in 2 tunnels, 2 surface running tram lines, and 3 cable car lines that are of interest to urban railway enthusiasts like us. The newest of the light rail tunnels, called the Central Subway, went into full-time service on January 7th of this year, and riding through it was the primary aim for this visit. It is used by the T 3rd Street service, whose outer portion was added to the network in 2007, and was originally routed through the Market Street Muni Metro Tunnel from 4th and King Streets. So this is where my cursor is at 4th and King. Initially, it ran over the Blue Line through downtown in the Muni Metro Tunnel under Market Street. And the new trackage and the new subway that opened is the Red Line over here. This is the portal of the N line and the previous routing of the T line, which was opened in 1998 for the N with the T added in 2007. A 1996 built car from Breda is en route to the T's outer terminal at Sunnydale in this view, looking northward along the Embarcadero, approaching Howard Street. The city's iconic ferry building, which you can see up here, is shown in the background, while the tracks of the E line run parallel on both sides of the portal, continuing on the Embarcadero to meet the F line. And the E line tracks are over here where my cursor is, and eventually they cross over the portal and join the tracks in the other direction to go down the Embarcadero to the ferry building. But we're really talking about the Central Subway, which is 1.7 miles long, that's 2.7 kilometers, with an additional 0.4 of a mile, 0.64 of a kilometer, of surface trackage along 4th Street before its portal is reached. I took this view of a train of 2 new Siemens cars on 4th Street just after its intersection with King at the beginning of the new trackage. The first of Muni's 249 Siemens cars went into service in 2017 and will totally replace the Breda units in 2027. At that time, the newest of the 151 Breda cars will be 28 years old. Another view of an outbound T-line train, this time approaching its 4th and Brannan stop, the only one on the surface of the new extension. Note the San Francisco skyline fading into the distance, as on Friday, the smoky haze was not abating. The Siemens S200 cars have 3 doors on each side, and they can be used for street loading and unloading, as well as at high platforms in the subway and at points where the right-of-way of the lines is sufficiently spacious for their employment. All service on the T line is provided by these Siemens cars, probably because Muni wants to show off its newest cars in its newest tunnel. 2 views at the new subway portal on 4th Street at Bryant, just below the elevated Interstate 80 freeway that in its entirety connects San Francisco with the New York metropolitan area near my home in New Jersey. A total of 2,900 miles, or 7,250 kilometers. And here's another view. The underground portion of the line has 3 stations. They are not very fancy, as Muni tried to keep costs down, so the walls are just plain concrete, and the island platforms have only the necessary furniture. I don't have a very good phone camera, so here's a better photo from Wikipedia of the Union Square Market Street station, the transfer point to the 5 lines of the Muni Metro and BART under Market Street, and also with the F Heritage Line and the 2 Powell Street cable car lines on the surface. This photo was taken by Muni before the line went into service. The only exceptional aspect of the stations comes from the long underground walk between the T-line platforms and those of the BART Muni Metro. If you wait long enough, the lights will change colors, with red and purple also rather striking. After completing my main job, I decided it would be fun to travel to some of the other tunnel portals of the system for photos. This map shows both BART within the city, and that's the light blue line going down this way, and the Muni Metro, which is the diagonal line. This particular map shows only 5 light rail lines, as the L Taraval line, which is over here on the left side, is operated as a feeder bus line because its surface portion is currently being upgraded with new track, overhead, and station stops. It should remain operated that way until the last half of 2024. It normally joins the K and M lines over here at West Portal and continues to downtown via the Market Street subway with the other 2 routes. Its place on the trunk route is currently served by cars that are marked S Shuttle. The double track line from West Portal to Embarcadero is entirely underground and operates in a bi-level subway after it is joined by BART at the Civic Center station. Earlier, I showed a slide of the portal at its Embarcadero end, and now you'll see where the tracks enter the city at West Portal. The tunnel under Market Street was opened to BART traffic in 1973, and for the Muni Metro gradually from 1980 to 1982. The structure is quite modernistic, especially when compared with the original one for the Twin Peaks Tunnel at the same location. The first was a Siemens car. This is a Breda car. Yes, the outer part of what is now the Muni Metro was built by the Municipal Railway in 1917 and opened for K-line service in 1918, following in 1919 for the L and 1925 for the M. A double-ended PCC car is shown exiting the tunnel in this photo from the internet. The eastern end of the 2¼ mile or 3.65 kilometer Twin Peaks Tunnel was approximately at Castro Street, and the 3 lines then continued eastward on the surface of Market Street to the ferry building, and later only as far as the Transbay Terminal, looping at First and Fremont Streets. It should be noted that there were 4 tracks on Market Street between those points, as predecessors of the privately owned Market Street Railway, also briefly known as United Railroads, first laid tracks on that thoroughfare in the mid-1800s. The roar of the 4, as the streetcar service on Market Street was described by many because of the noise, ended in 1944 when the 2 streetcar systems were unified. This Muni-supplied photo, looking east on Market at its intersection with Geary, was taken in 1940. Muni tracks were on the outside. A second tunnel built by Muni to extend this line westward toward the Pacific Ocean was built for the N-Judah line in 1928. The eastern portal of this 0.8 of a mile, or 1/2 of a kilometer, Sunset Tunnel is shown with a Siemens car entering from Dubose Avenue. Unlike the much longer Twin Peaks Tunnel, this one has no stations inside it. A few blocks east of the N-Line portal is Church Street, which is used by the J Line. A Breda car approaches Market Street after riding to the surface from the Market Street Tunnel at the J, N, and N portal on Dubose. And that's sort of all the way off here. You really can't see it. At Church and Market Streets, the J Line crosses the tracks of the F Heritage Line, which now runs on the surface of Market Street on an alignment that, before the advent of Muni Metro, served the J, K, L, M, and N routes. When the Market Street Tunnel first opened in 1980, the city planned to pave over the tracks, but fortunately it never got around to doing that. In 1982, shortly after the last regular car used those tracks and went into the subway, Muni decided to shut down its cable car network for a long-needed necessary upgrade for safety reasons. With cable cars, an important tourist attraction, to be out of service for the next 18 months, the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce and Mayor Dianne Feinstein, guided by members of the tourist industry and far-sighted rail fans, proposed the operation of a trolley festival on Market Street during the interim period with streetcars obtained from museums and from MUNI's historical collection. To make a long story short, this morphed into the immensely successful current E and F tram lines and the not-for-profit Market Street Railway, named after San Francisco's original streetcar company, which oversees their operation. This car, number 1050, came from Philadelphia and is painted in the livery of the streetcars that ran in St. Louis. MUNI actually operated 70 such cars that were acquired in 1957, which allowed it to retire the last of its traditional iron monster units. One of these St. Louis PCCs has been operating for some time in San Diego, and the Market Street Railway hopes to renovate at least one for the F line. Number 1050 had been painted in MUNI's green and cream colors when it first went into service on the F. The E and F lines are shown in red and dark blue on this map, while the three cable car lines are shown in green. The E actually continues along the waterfront with the F, the Fisherman's Wharf. I don't know why the map doesn't exactly show it that way. The route in light blue up at the top is a bus line that climbs the Coit Tower, another iconic symbol of the city. The intersection shown in the previous photo, 14th Church and Market Street, is in the lower left corner of the map down here. I spent Saturday riding F streetcars along Market Street and the Embarcadero as the line was offering additional service as part of the yearly San Francisco MUNI Heritage Weekend. Sadly, because of the COVID pandemic, riding has fallen throughout the system's mass transit system and has not yet come back to the previous levels, which has resulted in lower service frequencies to meet the current demand. Earlier, I mentioned how new schedules caused the premature elimination of BART's A, B, and C rapid transit cars. On MUNI's heritage tramways, it resulted in less service on the F line because fewer cars are needed, and the temporary discontinuation of the E line, which I hope will reopen this coming spring. However, the festival's tradition of using its historic cars, both from San Francisco and foreign cities, was still a major feature of the event, and I took the opportunity to see what was new, besides the previously viewed St. Louis car. Nothing that much in terms of the fleet of PCC cars, much of which were preserved locally or obtained from Philadelphia or Newark. Most have been painted in the colors of various American transit properties that once operated PCC cars and provide traction enthusiasts with much colorful nostalgia, especially those like me who rode in trams painted in these liveries in regular revenue service many years ago. Continuing down Martin Street, here is a view of number 1063, an ex-Philadelphia car painted in the final color scheme used for PCCs by the Baltimore Transit Company. Since this photo from 2015, the car has been repainted into the color scheme used when Baltimore first operated PCC cars in 1936. In most cases, the Market Street Railway was able to match the colors very closely, but there seems to be a jinx with regard to Baltimore in both instances. Here are two photos that show the colors more accurately. I took this one of the original colors at the Baltimore Streetcar Museum. And here is one of a PCC car in Baltimore's final livery from the internet. When I rode them from 1958 to 1963, I was not using slide film, but these two examples are the exception. For the most part, the colors of the F line are quite accurate to the average eye. Another change since my last visit concerns car 1062, also an ex-Philadelphia unit that was first painted in the color scheme of Louisville, Kentucky. PCC were delivered to Louisville in 1946, but they never operated there and instead were sold to Cleveland when the Kentucky city canceled its order. However, one of the leading PCC operators in the nation was Pittsburgh, location of the first PCC car ever put in revenue service, and the operator of more PCC streetcars in the US other than Chicago. The Steel City had not been honored until now. Thus, I saw the 1062 repainted into the familiar Pittsburgh Railways colors on this visit. Most of these last slides were taken on the Embarcadero, the waterfront boulevard that once had an ugly elevated freeway above it. In 1990, 3 years after it was closed, and let me go back to the Embarcadero right now, the Board of Supervisors of San Francisco voted to tear it down, a first of now many in the US that have met the same fate. Each year since 1991, the now tree-lined boulevard has become more and more a hub of tourist activity, much of which was created by the operation of the E&F streetcar lines. More than a dozen freeways have now fallen to the records ball. Piers for shipping, most of which have been converted for other uses, are in the background of many of my photos, like this one. Back to Market Street and now its foot. Another change, temporary for sure, is the enclosure of the ferry building and scaffolding for a repair project. An ex-Philadelphia PCC in the Los Angeles Railway color scheme is shown from this past September. Contrast this with a view from 2019 showing an ex-Philadelphia PCC in the exact same colors in which it was delivered to the city of brotherly love in 1948. San Francisco purchased 14 of these cars for the F-line. In my mind, this brings up the question of authenticity. One could argue that only a small number of the PCCs now operated in San Francisco are truly authentic versions, in the sense that their color scheme and bodies essentially match what you would have seen had you visited those cities when they were operating, except for their numbers in some cases. Number 1055 looks virtually identical to when it previously was operated by the Philadelphia Transportation Company. I can think of only 5 more that meet my artificial qualifications for authenticity. Here are 2 of the F-Line's PCCs obtained from Newark that fit that definition. Number 1071 is shown at the foot of Market Street in 2015 in its original Twin City Rapid Transit livery as delivered to Minneapolis, St. Paul in 1947. Note the 1915 on the ferry building's tower. It commemorates the 100th anniversary of the World's Fair, when 19 million people visited the rebuilt city almost a decade after its huge earthquake and fire of 1906. When the owners decided to replace the streetcars with buses in Minneapolis and St. Paul, many of the cars, which were built in 1946, 47, and 49, were sold to other properties, including Mexico City, Shaker Heights, and Newark. Muni purchased 11 of the 30 that Newark had received, and now number 1070 is painted in the public service livery in which the cars entered service in the Newark City subway in 1954. 3 other cars from San Francisco are truly authentic, and these even carry their original numbers in addition to their original paint schemes. 2 are double-ended torpedo cars built in 1948. Both were converted to single-end operation during later years, but were then rehabilitated and restored to their original condition for the F-line, and later the E-line, when it was created in 2014 and 2015. While the F-line had loops at either end, the Fourth and King terminal of the E has only a crossover, so that route requires double-ended cars. Here is number 1008, crossing under the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge right after it curves from the Embarcadero onto King Street. The original tramway network of San Francisco did not have tracks at this location. Torpedo number 1006 from the same series of 10 from 1948 is shown at Pier 39. In my opinion, these cars are the smoothest riding units in E or F line service, probably because of their weight. 3 other torpedoes are painted in the color schemes of other cities, just like the single-ended cars on the F. Finally, single-ended Muni car 1040, built new by the St. Louis Car Company in 1952, the final PCC ever constructed in the United States. It was the last of an order of 25 cars for Muni, 1016 to 1040. In the years from 1936 to 1952, just under 5,000 PCs were built in North America, mainly by 2 manufacturers, St. Louis Car and Pullman Standard. It is remarkable that PCCs built by these 2 organizations still run in revenue transit service, albeit some having been extensively renovated in places like San Francisco, Boston, El Paso, Kenosha, and soon again, Philadelphia. To finish our coverage of my Saturday, September 23rd visit to the Trolley Festival, let's take a look at the international and heritage trams that were out on the road that weekend. Some of the following photos were taken at previous festivals, as they are superior to the ones I took in the hazy weather a few months ago. But not this one. Excuse me a moment. Let's start with ex-Blackpool boat car 228 because its livery is brand new. It was the first car I rode when I arrived at the festival and is shown at Pier 39 in this view. The red and cream colors were applied earlier this year to match one of Blackpool's similar cars and also to differentiate from sister car 233, which is also on Muni's roster. Here are both cars in a view I took at the 2019 festival. They were built for the British Seaside Resort in 1934 and are among the favorites for tourists visiting either city. The location of this view, showing both the 228 and the 233, is the Embarcadero opposite the ferry terminal. And here from the same year is one of the boats being passed by an ex-Milan Peter Witt car. Muni has 11 of these 1928 built units on its roster. Actually, number 1815 was used this year. The cars are painted in 2 other liveries that once were used in Milan. The original Milan paint scheme from 1928 was yellow with white stripes and is shown on this picture taken on Market Street. When I visited Milan for the first time in 1960, the Witts were painted in green and had trolley poles, just like this one at Pier 39. The oldest operating car on this Saturday was number 578, which is also the oldest in the heritage fleet. The deck roof single trucker was built by the Hammond Car Company for the original Market Street Railway in 1896. Hammond also built many of the cable cars that operate on California Street. This view is at the F-line short turn loop at Pier 39. Another picture shows the handsome car on the Embarcadero at the intersection of North Point and Kearny Streets. One of the great pride and joys of the heritage fleet is Muni car number 1, built in 1912 for the first city-owned transit system in the United States. It was built by W.L. Holman and was part of the first 10 cars ordered by the fledgling organization that now operates all of San Francisco's tram and bus lines. It is shown turning on to Don Chi Way from the Embarcadero. Ex-Brussels number 737 is the only European PCC car on the Muni roster. It was built by Le Bourgeois in Belgium as car 7037 in 1952, around the same time as America's last PCC, San Francisco 1040. The attractive streamliner is painted in the Zurich color scheme to reflect the Swiss municipality's status as a sister city to San Francisco. This excellent riding unit is shown gliding down the Embarcadero where it meets North Point and Kearny Streets. Last but not least of the foreign and heritage cars operated on September 23rd is ex-Melbourne, Australia, number 496. The 1928 built double-ended center door W2 unit is shown operating on the E line in 2019 at the same location as the previous photo. Now we will move onto what may be the most beloved of San Francisco's tourist attractions, its cable car system. I hardly could put on a program like this without presenting some views of this unusual rail system and its quaint rolling stock. This photo along California Street between Grant and Kearny presents quite a contrast, showing two of the city's modern skyscrapers, the pyramid-shaped Transamerica Tower at 49 stories and the Hartford building with 34 floors. Here is a closer up view of the three cable car routes. And you can see the two single-ended Powell lines run north from Powell and Market and either to Mason or Hyde near Fisherman's Wharf. And the single-ended California Street line runs perpendicular to it from Market Street near the Embarcadero out to Van Ness Avenue. Cable cars were the perfect vehicle for navigating San Francisco's hilly terrain, and the first time went into service in 1873. The advent of the electric streetcar, followed by the earthquake of 1906, reduced the number of cable car lines, and in 1957, the present network of 3 routes were instituted, utilizing portions of the previous larger system. Big 19, constructed in 1883, was the most recent cable car restored and came out for its first festival just 4 years ago. Originally built for the standard gauge lines on Market Street, it was converted to narrow gauge, 3 foot 6 inches or 1,067 millimeters after the 1906 earthquake, and then from 1908 to 1942 operated in revenue service on the Sacramento and Clay Street line of the original Market Street Railway. Andrew Halliday invented the system where metal dies grip an underground moving cable. He operated the first cable car over the initial portion of that line in 1873. It is called Big 19 because the double-ended car's length is 34 feet. That's 10 meters. 34 feet or 10 meters longer than the normal California Street cable cars by almost 4 feet. I took these photos at the downtown terminal of the California Street line where it crosses Drum Street. Big 19 passes number 52, a regular California Street cable car. There are 12 of these California cars, so called because the double-ended units have open sections between a closed portion, a tribute to the lack of extreme weather in most cities of the Golden State. The design was introduced by the California Street Cable Railroad Company in 1891. Like many others in operations today, this 1996 constructed unit was built to replace an earlier car of the same number. Like the Big 19, California Street number 42 is not normally operated in regular service. It was originally used on a long-gone cable route, O'Farrell, Jones, and Hyde Streets, and was manufactured by W.L. Holman for the California Street Company, which operated both routes. The 1906 built unit is shown in its 1910 livery in front of the Fairmont Hotel on California Street between Mason and Powell. The other two remaining cable car lines operate from Powell and Market Streets. The Powell, Mason, and Powell Hyde routes utilize a fleet of 28 single-ended units, which are reversed on turntables at their respective terminals, the former at North Beach, as shown in this photo of number 12, and the latter further west at the extreme edge of Fisherman's Wharf. The Powell-Mason line dates back to 1888 and still runs over its original alignment. The Powell lines use cars that are shorter than those on California Street by 2.5 feet. These 27.5-foot units have an open section at their front and a closed one at their rear. The gripman and conductor are turning the car. Fisherman's Wharf and Alcatraz Island can be seen in this view of an outbound car at Chestnut and Hyde Streets, about to navigate a very steep hill. As long as it grips the cable, it will not surpass 9 miles per hour or 14.5 kph. Number 18 on the Powell Hyde line was built in 1962 from the frame of an earlier unit. Inbound Powell Hyde car 25 has just climbed Russian Hill from Fisherman's Wharf and pauses at Lombard Street. Many of the Powell Street cable cars are painted in different color schemes to represent the different eras in the life of the original Market Street Railway. Between 1903 and 1909, when operating under the name United Railroads, each route had its own colors, and fiery red identified Powell cars. Before we leave the Bay Area, we'll take a quick look at a relatively new commuter rail operation that operates in Marin County across the bay north of San Francisco. It runs from the town of Larkspur, adjacent to the city of San Rafael, and is connected to San Francisco by buses crossing San Francisco Bay over the famous Golden Gate Bridge and by ferries operating from the foot of Market Street. Called SMART, which stands for Sonoma Marin Area Rapid Transit, it began operating in 2017. Its diesel MU cars run northward from the bay for 45 miles or 72 kilometers to the city of Santa Rosa in Sonoma County over the right-of-way of a former electric interurban, the Northwestern Pacific Railroad. Its last 2 miles to connect with the ferry at Larkspur was opened in 2019. This photo at the San Rafael station shows the lower part of one of the temporary bumper blocks prior to the extension's opening. 18 diesel rail cars built by Nippon Sharyo operate over what is primarily a single-track railroad. The rolling stock is almost identical to what is operated on the DMU line that runs between Union Station and Pearson Airport in Toronto. 19 round trips on weekdays and 8 on weekends operate on the 12-station, 45-mile long line, taking 1 hour and 19 minutes. This single-car DMU is running inbound and is shown between the Marin Civic Center station in San Rafael and Novato. The line also sees freight service. It is connected to the Union Pacific Railroad and the rest of the world at Susan Fairfield on Amtrak's Capital Corridor by the Brazos branch that runs eastward from Novato. The current freight operation continues beyond the end of passenger service in Santa Rosa to the Sonoma-Mendocino counties border, just after Cloverdale, and there are plans to extend the passenger service a further 25 miles or 40 kilometers through Windsor and Healdsburg to that town. The first and only funded segment to Windsor is expected to open in 2 or 3 years. The line throughout most of its history was known as the Northwestern Pacific Railroad, and it once extended northward for another 200 miles or 320 kilometers to Eureka. The city of Novato is served by 3 stations of SMART, and I took this photo near the northernmost, Novato San Marin. The reason I wanted to mention this new passenger service over the former Northwestern Pacific Railroad is because it has an electric traction connection, specifically interurban or suburban tram service from the San Francisco's ferries northward as far as San Rafael. Unfortunately, most of that network has been torn up, with the exception of the northernmost portion of what was called the Greenbrae Line. That right-of-way was used for most of the 2-mile extension from San Rafael to the ferry at Larkspur. The railway was owned by the Southern Pacific, and so it's not surprising that the interurban cars it operated were very similar to those used by Pacific Electric in Los Angeles, the Interurban Electric Railway in San Francisco's Bay Area, East Bay area, and the red car system out of Portland, Oregon. The line had been electrified with third rail, and its cars operated from 1903 to 1941. This station, Tamalpais High School, was on a branch running from the pier at Sausalito to Mill Valley. These blimp cars ran out their final years on the Long Beach line of Pacific Electric, which was discontinued in 1961. Now give me a moment to switch over to the next portion, which deals with Los Angeles. I'll also take a drink. So we will now move our focus from the Bay Area to Southern California, specifically to Los Angeles and its surroundings, and we'll discuss some of the new developments in this growing mecca for rail transit. Los Angeles is California's largest city with a population of just under 4 million. The City of Angels is also the second largest in the United States, lying some 400 miles southeast San Francisco down to Los Angeles. Of San Francisco, its metropolitan area is very spread out, covering some 34,000 square miles or 88,000 square kilometers. Its population is 18.5 million, making it the second largest conurbation or megalopolis in the United States. The area is covered by Metrolink, which operates 8 regional rail lines radiating from Union Station in Los Angeles. That's right here. A large complex that is also served by Amtrak, the National Passenger Railway System, and 3 electric transit lines. From the map, you can see that Los Angeles County is in the center-west portion of the region and is surrounded by the Pacific Ocean and 4 other counties, which are also considered to be part of the Los Angeles metropolitan area: Los Angeles County, Ventura, San Bernardino, Orange. This is a close-up view of the previous map. The light gray lines in the lower left with the M's at their ends denote the length and breadth of today's electric transit routes. The Los Angeles Metropolitan Transit Authority, usually called LA Metro, operates 2 heavy rail lines: the red, which is the A, which is the B, and the purple, which is the D, at the top left, and 4 light rail lines: the A line, which is in blue, the C line in green, the gold line, the E line, which is colored in gold, and the new K line, which is in magenta over here at the left side. And they're all in Los Angeles County, mainly serving the city, but also extending into adjacent parts of the county under the name Metro Rail. Since 1990, over 100 miles, 160 kilometers of route have been built by the agency, with more on the drawing board. This is a fitting reversal for the area, considering that in the last century, it contained the largest interurban in the world, largest network. Pacific Electric, with some 990 miles, almost 1,600 kilometers of route, plus an urban tramway system, Los Angeles Railway, that covered a further 230 miles of route, or 370 kilometers. Before the end of 1963, it was all gone. But a gradual rebirth began 27 years later. You can see on the upper right side of this map, which is up here, that an under construction section of the A line, showed by the dashed blue lines, will have its eastern end run alongside Metrolink, which is this gray line, and all the gray lines are Metrolink. And the opening of that extension is planned for 2025. To start, we're going to look at the new K Crenshaw line, whose first portion opened this past June. It runs from the Expo Light Rail line, now the E line, and shown in blue here, southwest towards Los Angeles International Airport, or LAX, which is this gray area in the lower left. And then after its completion, will continue southward to join the C Norwalk Redondo Beach line, formerly the Green Line, which is down here. The first portion, which opened on October 7th, 2022, is 6.5 miles long, 10.5 kilometers, with 7 stations, and consists of sections of underground and surface running, with a temporary terminal at the Westchester Veterans Station, which is down here. The last section, which will add an additional 2 miles, or 3.2 kilometers, to the line and will contain 3 more stations. And that's perhaps the most important, as it will provide passengers coming from the C and E lines access to the airport via a people mover. And that's the orange dashed line running horizontally over here. That is now under construction, and its expected completion is late next year. This is the glass enclosed entrance to the Expo Crenshaw Underground Terminal at the northern end of the line. It is located a block from the E line stop on the surface. Thus, there is obviously no track connection, but long escalators and elevators from the head house lead to a center platform in a deep tunnel. A K-line LRV is shown about to cross Hendry Avenue as it approaches the line's temporary terminal, Westchester Veterans. The downgrade in the background is from a bridge that crosses Interstate Freeway 405 and La Cienega Boulevard, 2 major traffic arteries. After stopping at the station behind the photographer, this train will proceed to a crossover just short of the line's car house to return on the other track. Passengers can transfer to a free bus shuttle from this station to the airport. It is highly likely that the remainder of the line has been constructed over a combination of surface, underground, and elevated track, but it will have to wait for the people mover's completion before going into revenue service. Google satellite maps show the K line joining the aerial structure of the C line in both directions. And that's, of course, right down here. I suspect the rolling stock used on the K line was delivered via this connection. It is highly likely that the new line will be through routed with one or both of the C's legs, which go out this way. The aviation LAX stop of the C line is shown at the bottom right. Shuttle buses also connect this station with the airport. This is the view from the southbound platform of the Fairview Heights station at the West Boulevard grade crossing. A ramp at left is used by passengers to access the stop's southbound high-level platform via turnstiles that are activated by tapping chip-enabled fare media. Ticket machines outside the fare control sell cards that actuate the gates. LA Metro's light rail system uses high-floor tram cars stopping at high-level platforms, similar to the systems in St. Louis, Calgary, and Edmonton. On its southern end, railroad-style crossing gates protect the line from automobiles at level road crossings, as shown on the far left side of this photo. The rear of a northbound train along the median of Crenshaw Boulevard at West 50th Street. Note all the road signs. No left turn, no U-turn, stay to the right of the pole, no pedestrians, do not drive on tracks. The last clearly aimed at those who shouldn't have driver's licenses in the first place. First, base service on the line runs every 12 minutes with rush hour frequencies bumped to every 10. Running time from end to temporary end is 18 minutes. A southbound two-car train operating in the median of Crenshaw Boulevard approaches Slauson Avenue, which it will cross at grade as it enters the Hyde Park station. In this busy urban area, LRV and automobile movements are controlled by traffic lights with the absence of gates. Station platforms are long enough to accommodate three-car trains. When I rode the line, all of its rolling stock consisted of two-car trains of Kinky Chariot P3010 units, which are the agency's newest and are assigned to this line, no doubt, in order to make the best possible impression. The first of these 235 cars were placed in operation in 2016, and their delivery eventually resulted in the retirement of Metro Rail's original rolling stock. Nippon Chariot built the first order of cars for the reintroduction of electric transit service in Los Angeles in 1990, with 54 of these P865 units for the line to Long Beach, now the southern portion of the A route. 15 virtually identical P2020 cars followed in 1995 for the Green Line, now the C, which differed only because they had controls for automated operation, which were never used. A three-car train of these units is shown near the Pico Street station, heading for the underground terminal at 7th and Flower. The city's downtown skyline is in the background. Another view of the original cars, also showing the skyline, contrasts two of the different color schemes they carried. Alan Weeks took this photo of the first P865s being delivered to Los Angeles MTA from Japan on March 18, 1989. As a tribute to the big red cars, some 40 years after the abandonment of its last line, which operated to Long Beach, two of the new Long Beach line's P865 cars were painted in Pacific Electric colors. This photo from the internet shows one of them. Before the cars were retired, they had been repainted into current Metro Rail colors. When the Expo line, now the E, was built, references to Pacific Electric were embedded in many of the station's concrete platforms. Much of the route was built on the alignment of Pacific Electric's Santa Monica airline along Exposition Boulevard. Pacific Electric is still remembered very fondly. From 2003 to 2015, the waterfront red car line in San Pedro, south of Los Angeles, operated as a 1.5 mile, 2.4 kilometer tourist attraction for patrons of the nearby World Cruise Center, the cruise ship terminal for Los Angeles. It used a restored Pacific Electric 1000 series interurban car and two finely crafted PE replica 500 series cars. PE's 26-mile-long San Pedro line to downtown LA was abandoned in 1958. I took this photo in 2009. PE's heritage has been captured beautifully at the Southern California Railway Museum, formerly named the Orange Empire Trolley Museum, in Perris, California, some 75 miles or 120 kilometers east of downtown Los Angeles. My photo from 2009 shows interurban cars 418 and 717 passing on its standard gauge main line. The 418 is one of the blimp cars that were built for Southern Pacific's interurban lines in 1913. in Oregon, and then in 1934 went to the San Francisco Bay Area to operate on SP subsidiaries, Third Rail Powered Northwestern Pacific, as we discussed before, and the overhead equipped Interurban Electric Railway in the East Bay, before coming to Pacific Electric after both systems were discontinued in 1941. The 418 is one of the former East Bay cars. Number 717 is a Hollywood suburban car from 1925 that runs to its namesake area, and later also on the Watts Local until 1958. My first visit to Los Angeles was in 1962, 1 year after the last Pacific Electric line was discontinued. But I wasn't too late to ride LA's PCC cars before the last 5 lines of the narrow gauge system were abandoned 1 year later in 1963. The museum also has built a 3-foot 6-inch gauge, 1,067 millimeter loop for operating its collection of former Los Angeles railway cars. And I photographed this PCC's on the same 2009 visit. Number 3001 was Los Angeles' first PCC, built in 1937, the same year as I was. Now back to the center of the city and the new downtown regional connector, which went into service on June 16th of this year. It consists of just under 2 miles, or 3.1 kilometers, of tunnel containing 3 stations, and 2 new portals, both at the lower right, and both going to the former Gold Line. As the Gold Line, before this was built, operated down where the blue line is shown and then out where the Gold Line is shown now. With its completion, the lines from Long Beach and Santa Monica that terminated at 7th and Flower Streets, which is in the lower left over here, were combined with the lines to Azusa and East Los Angeles into today's A line, which is shown in blue, and that is 49 miles long now, 78 kilometers, and the E line, shown in gold, 22 miles long, or 35 kilometers. This Peter Ehrlich photo shows a P865 LRV train in its original colors at 7th Street Metro Center Station, the former underground terminal of both the A and E lines, where until last June, passengers had to transfer to the heavy rail rapid transit trains of the B and D routes on the lower level to reach Union Station, or to be distributed further into the downtown section of Los Angeles. A photo I took in 2009 shows one of the original trains entering the Flower Street portal. Now on to Union Station for a train ride to San Bernardino to see the new Arrow system. Tracks through one of the portals of the downtown regional connector now join the old elevator alignment of the Gold Line en route to Azusa via Union Station. This view, taken from the walkway just beyond the terminal's bumper blocks, shows an A-line train approaching the station's northernmost platform. There's a good view of LA skyline here. As mentioned earlier, Metrolink is the name of the Southern California Regional Rail Authority's commuter rail system that serves the suburbs of Los Angeles and the far reaches of the city's metropolitan area. There are 8 lines radiating from Los Angeles Union Station. Metrolink covers 550 miles of route, that's 880 kilometers. It was created from scratch starting in 1991 and operates mostly over privately owned freight trackage, much of which sported long-distance passenger service, but never had commuter service until now. In order to get to the brand new Arrow DMU operation to Redlands, California, I rode a train of the San Bernardino line, which is shown in red, for a distance of 58 miles, or 93 kilometers, with stops at 12 way stations, a ride lasting 1 hour and 43 minutes. Here is a view of a cab car of a push-pull Metrolink train very similar to the one I rode at its tracks bumper block in Union Station. The line to San Bernardino uses part of the old Pacific Electric San Bernardino Interurbans right-of-way, including a section in the median of a freeway, and eventually joins the former Santa Fe Railroad's main line, now Burlington Northern Santa Fe, or BNSF, after running briefly alongside it. That route once saw luxury trains like the Super Chief and El Capitan. Right Rail Line A, which uses much of the Santa Fe's alignment, is being extended from its current terminal in Azusa alongside the railway's freight right-of-way, which eventually becomes adjacent to Metrolink through the towns of Laverne and Pomona. The 10-mile-long, 16-kilometer foothill extension is scheduled to open in 2025, and there also may be a further 2.5-mile extension to Montclair, California. I briefly saw construction taking place from my train window approaching the Pomona North Station. This is a photo taken by Alan Weeks over 6 months ago. He tells me the catenary poles are now up and some overhead wire has been strung. A little under 2 hours after leaving Union Station, I saw this Stadler Flirt DMU waiting for me on another platform at the San Bernardino downtown station. This type of DMU appears to be the result of a natural progression from the Swiss car builders GTW series used here in New Jersey on the River Line since its inception in 2004, and also by later versions that are now running on eBart in California, which you saw, and in Austin and Dallas to Denton, Texas. Arrow can be considered an extension of Metrolink's San Bernardino line and operates over a long-time Santa Fe freight branch that lost its passenger service back in 1938. It is 9 miles long with 5 stations and was developed and is controlled by the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority. Arrow is operated by Metrolink and uses the same fare structure and ticket machines. One through round trip on weekdays runs from Union Station in Los Angeles through the Redlands downtown station. It's an express train and takes only a little over 1.5 hours for the trip, stopping at only 5 intermediate stations. Otherwise, all other trains on Arrow are Stadler DMUs, which take 23 minutes to cover the 9 miles. Here is the outer terminal, Redlands University Station, serving the University of Redlands. The line has a robust schedule of 22 round trips on weekdays and 16 on weekends. There is a concentration of 7 trains each way during the period between 10:30 and 14:30, which gave me quite a few opportunities to ride and photograph the line. Here are some additional photos. Most of the route is single track. In fact, there is only one passing siding. This view from a gate-protected grade crossing just east of the Redlands downtown station. Here is a photo of a university-bound DMU accelerating after its last stop at Redlands downtown, and one as it approaches the station itself. The station actually has 2 platforms. The one in view on the left, or south side of the station, is 15 inches high, approximately the same as the floor height of a flirt car. The other, behind the rail car, which is barely visible, is on the station's north side, and its platform height is only 8 inches, which is standard for Metrolink trains. Thus, it is used only for the single round-trip express run between Los Angeles and Redlands. One last photo of a Stadler flirt car, which is about to leave the Redlands Esri stop. Esri is a computer mapping company in the U.S. that is well known for its demographic databases. A pair of short-term round trips between this station and the university is timed to allow employees and students the opportunity to have lunch in one of the many restaurants near the Redlands downtown station, as there are few choices of eating anywhere near these 2 surrounding stations. All in all, I found the new car line interesting, but its patronage is rather low at this time. But of note is that Stadler and Arrow will introduce a hydrogen-powered flirt train next year to promote efforts to create zero-emission transportation. The Arrow crews I spoke with were very excited about this development. Apparently, fuel cells and hydrogen tanks will be located in the car's center section. Their interaction will create electricity that will be sent to a traction battery, which will power the motors of the car. After returning to Union Station, I decided to revisit the C, formerly the Green Line, which I hadn't ridden in quite a few years. So I rode the A line toward Long Beach and transferred at the Willowbrook Rosa Parks Station using a series of escalators via mezzanine to take me from the ground level to the C's island platform in the sky. The C line runs in the median of I-105, the Imperial Freeway, which is elevated at this point. The first thing I noticed upon my arrival was the continuous ear-shattering roar of traffic speeding past. The 19.25-mile long line, 31 kilometers, was opened in 1995. Here is a view from the mezzanine of the Willowbrook Rosa Parks Station amid the on and off ramps of the expressway. With a 10-minute headway, I had the time to drop back to take another photo of the portion of the line that runs in the freeway's median. This is looking eastward along the 105 at Crenshaw Station. After the Aviation Boulevard LAX stop, the line leaves the freeway and turns south onto an elevated structure for its last 4 stops to Redondo Beach Terminal. This photo is from Nash Street at the Mariposa Station. The C Line's rolling stock mainly consists of the 52 Siemens-built P2000 cars that were delivered in the year 2000. There is an occasional train of new P3010 cars on the line. Here's a view of these cars in an earlier color screen on today's A line along Washington Boulevard. To tell the truth, I thought I would be able to ride one of the 50 Breda 2550 cars that Metro Rail added to its fleet in 2007, which are now supplementing the new P3010s on the A line, but no such luck. But I did ride and photograph these stainless steel units on an earlier trip. This train is on the elevated structure that now leads into the A line's portal to the downtown regional connectors, Little Tokyo Arts District underground station. At the time I took this photo, the train ran on the Gold Line and turned east onto the East LA segment of what is now the E line. The Breda cars ride very well, but they are overweight and were delivered rather late. As mentioned earlier, there are 2 heavy rapid transit lines operated by Metroline, the B and the D. They total 37 route miles, 26 kilometers, and operate entirely underground, sharing the trunk line's tunnel for about 3 miles, or 6.2 kilometers. This photo from the internet was exposed at the trunk line's eastern terminal, Union Station. Construction is underway for a 9-mile or 14-kilometer extension of the D line, which will add 7 more stations and is expected to open from 2025 to 2027. Alan Weeks took this photo at the car house and shops of the heavy rail system. The entire operating fleet currently consists of 104 A650 cars, which went into service when the subway, as it is called by Los Angelinos, opened in 1993. The married pairs were built by Breda in its Pistoia branch in Italy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct. In order to support the forthcoming extension to the D line, 64 new cars were ordered from the state-owned rolling stock company in China, CRRC. Alan Weeks took the next 2 photos of the new HR 4000 cars that have recently been delivered from the Chinese company's assembly plant in Springfield, Massachusetts. The contract came with options to order 218 more of these units, to eventually replace the Breda A650s. But apparently, the additional cars needed to retire the Bredas will instead come from Hyundai Rotem in South Korea. As we move to the conclusion of this presentation, let's look at other electric transit operations in and around the city. Angel Flight is the name of Los Angeles' iconic funicular located in the heart of its city center. I rode the subway, which runs under Hill Street for 2 stops from Union Station to Pershing Square at 5th Street. Once back on the surface, it was 1 block away, halfway between 3rd and 4th Streets. A single cable propels both cars, which pass at the midpoint, similar to many inclined railways. It opened in 1901 in a slightly different location, about a half block north of where it is today, and was moved to its present position in 1996. The portal shown in this 1903 view is for the 4-block long 3rd Street tunnel that runs under Bunker Hill, connecting Hill Street with Flower Street. Angel's Flight goes up the hill from Hill Street to Olive. Bunker Hill had been a fashionable neighborhood when the funicular was built, but it declined significantly through the years and later became characterized as blighted and crime-ridden. As a result, the whole district was redeveloped starting in the 1960s, resulting in the closing of Angel Flights from 1969. The top of Bunker Hill itself was lowered after the land was cleared for the massive project that brought new skyscrapers to the area. The 2 cars and end stations were placed in storage, and finally in 1996, the funicular was rebuilt and reopened in its present location. The buildings on top give you some idea of how the neighborhood looks today. This is the setting of Angel's Flight nowadays, as it functions mainly as a tourist attraction and is flourishing in that role. Look at how the buildings dwarf the funicular. It rises a mere 96 feet, 29 meters, over a distance of 298 feet, 91 meters, which means its grade is approximately 33%. Its 2 cars that date from 1901 have been almost totally rebuilt. In fact, the whole system has undergone several renovations, some unfortunately spectacularly unsuccessful, with fatal accidents causing closings, more rebuildings, and more reopenings during the last 2 decades. I hope, though, that it's here to stay. There are 2 trams operating in the Los Angeles area that are self-propelled. Both were brainchilds of an LA businessman who developed 2 very attractive high-end shopping malls. The first is adjacent to LA's longtime farmers market, and it's called The Grove. A single battery-powered double-deck streetcar has been running since 2002 for about 1,200 feet, 360 meters, on standard gauge track. It was built by the California company TIG/M, which also has supplied trams for Oranjestad, Aruba, and Doha in the Emirate of Qatar. However, the unit was later renovated by the Gomaco company of Ida Grove, Iowa. The America at Brand development in the suburb of Glendale has a similar operation. 2 cars, a battery-powered 7-bench motor and matching trailer were built by Gomaco, which has constructed many replica trams that are now used in many American cities from coast to coast, ranging from Lowell, Massachusetts to Portland, Oregon. The installation in Glendale has operated since 2005 and consists of a 3-foot 6-inch gauge loop, just like the original Los Angeles Railway. And it is about the same length as its cousin at Los Angeles Farmers Market. We cannot leave the Los Angeles area and end the program without mentioning Disneyland. Located in nearby Anaheim, some 25 miles southeast of the city, it has operated a meter gauge line since 2010 called the Red Car Trolley. 2 cars were built to carry passengers from the park's main entrance and its version of Sunset Boulevard in its Hollywoodland section, a distance of a little over 2,000 feet, 600 meters. Car 623 was based on the Pacific Electric 600 series, its number selected for the month that Walt Disney arrived in California, June 1923. The last two photos come from Disneyland's website. The cars are operated by battery. The trolley poles and overhead wire are not energized and are there just for authenticity. The second car sports the same number as the real built Hollywood car from 1925 that I showed operating at the Orange Empire Museum earlier in the program. The paint scheme of bright red with orange striping shown on this unit was influenced by the Art Deco wings that PE applied to the cars starting in 1939. I always enjoy visiting Los Angeles and hope to do so again as many projects in the area come to fruition. This concludes my program. I hope you have enjoyed it.